Very.
Special guest.
Special guest today. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. So I'm known as a life coach. I'm AOUILK. I'm a coach to UFC fighters, but I'm also an activist speaking out against honor-based killings and other cultural crimes, I'll call it.
Okay.
And I am Dr. Celeste. So I am a dentist based in London, and I'm a co-founder of our non-profit endhonorkillings.org. We work together helping girls move them away from those types of situations. We rescue them working with police.
I like to start with saying y'all have the coolest accents I've
It's
ever heard.
just like such a prestige.
We've never had anyone with those type of accents, and I think I can.
No, don't try. Don't.
That won't give a
Don't
Sam.
try.
I mean, I am an MMA fighter.
What does the MMA stand for?
Me. Ma.
Yeah.
Me ma fighter. Oh, okay.
I like to, yeah. So, the way we like to start our show, and we're sorry for being late.
Right.
I apologize.
The late weather, as I said.
Texas traffic is.
Texas time.
The way we like to start our show is we like to ask our special guests, what part of the world are you from?
Okay, so I'm born and bred in the United Kingdom. But my parents, my heritage is Indian, so they're from the north of India. And she's my mum. So I'm half Indian and half Nigerian, but I again was also born and raised in the UK, so in the United Kingdom.
You know, I have partial Indian in my family. You can tell by the gray in my hair.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
See that? Great. Beautiful.
So,
that was a joke. I see you didn't
Maybe the next
It's American humor is different than UK humor. It's a little.
We're very sarcastic.
Yes.
I'm not sure if you would take that nicely
yeah.
Not
or
at all.
not. So I bit my tongue.
Yeah, not at
Don't
That one was-
let it out. Especially
Especially
when he started talking.
I need some more hair, but I stopped. Joke's off.
So,
I'm going to put this down.
yeah, because it's going to pick you up.
it just looks cool to hold.
It does.
So this is a two-part question for each of you because we're dealing with a generation gap a little bit. So through your lenses, tell us what life was like growing up where you were from.
So I was born, as I said, into a house with two older brothers. In my culture, when girls are born, there's no party. When boys are born, there's a huge party, sweets are handed out, and it's a really big celebration. But when a lot of girls are born and stillborn, not just back when I was born, girls are not received very well. They're not wanted. There's a real solemn affair. So there's a lot of sadness in the house. There's a lot of tutting, a lot of people saying, never mind, never mind. Equally for me, I wasn't wanted. My parents were convinced I had some sort of evil thing within me, like I was possessed by the devil almost. And they would call me a witch from a young age. They didn't call me by name. So I was given a boy's name on my birth certificate, and I just wasn't wanted. So I was very neglected as a child. So by sort of 6, I was a modern day slave. I was sat in my room day in, day out, waiting to be called, and that was my only interaction with my family. So I had no conversation, my eyes were always down. You're almost supposed to be not seen or heard. So I would scurry around very quietly in the hope that what I was doing was going to make them want me, love me. I was constantly trying to please them. So that was my childhood, really. It's to do with the culture. So culturally, if you're from India, the north of India especially, girls are just not wanted. Everybody wants a boy, and in my times, my mum and her friends would get together so that people could birth their children in the house, and they didn't get registered. If you don't go to a doctor or a nurse and say you're having a baby, they don't know. So they would get together, a little group of women, the woman having a baby, she would have her baby delivered by the other women. If it was a girl, they would place it in a plastic bag and suffocate the baby and bury it in the back garden. And there's been remains found all over the place with this instance. So it's a thing, it happens. You know, it's not something that's just made up or doesn't happen, it's a true thing. As time went on, they started having scans. If it was a girl and they didn't want the girl, they would abort the baby. And then England got quite strict on the fact of people were doing this. So now they just go somewhere else, pay privately. On Harley Street, you can go to a doctor, pay for private scanning, and they will tell you boy, girl, and they'll get rid of the baby. Or they will go to India or a different country. Girls in India, I mean, there was something in the news recently where a girl was found in the bushes. There was a baby abandoned in Dubai. People just don't want girls. I say in my TED talk about the fact that girls are just not wanted, but also the fact that if in India, a lot of the way they get rid of girls is they have the baby and they'll place it on the passenger side of a truck where the tyre is. The driver will get in on the driver's side, not look at the passenger side and start to drive, and that end that life. And they have no remorse, they have no compassion that it's a baby girl.
Do they realize that men can reproduce by
I was just about to go there, yeah.
And that's why I was going to, and it kind of leads to the question I was going to ask. Was it, I know you say that girls weren't wanted or accepted, but was it a class thing? Like, what, it's only in poor class? Was it the same in like upper class?
So my father's a self-made businessman, so he's got money.
Money wasn't the issue.
The money's not the issue, the class is not the issue, the education's not the issue. What the issue is this cultural belief system continues generation after generation, because it's like, say your mum makes, I don't know, a type of bread in a certain way, like, I don't know, cornbread or something, I don't know.
Gumbo.
So, gumbo, okay.
Yeah.
Just understood your roots now.
He's from New Orleans, but not
Right,
from
okay.
Louisiana.
So she would pass that recipe on to maybe yourselves and your siblings, and you would say, well, I'm going to do it the way my mum made it. It's the same sort of thing, mentality-wise. I can't do that, it's not the way it was for my mum. Can't do that, it's bad for the community. And also community matters so much in our culture and cultures like it, whereby they will kill to retain that honour in the community, how they're seen, how they're perceived, how people respect them. You know, it's all about everyone else, which is a shame because, as I keep saying, we don't teach our children how to be happy. It's one of the most important fundamentals of life.
It's a big image thing, right?
Yeah.
It's a huge image thing.
That's it. It's how other people perceive you. So
Yeah.
different culture, Latino culture is not as bad. But
No, but girls are still not as respected.
They're not as
And I have a
respected,
lot of
and they're more-
victims come
more
forward.
like servitude,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, from a young age, Latina girls are
Yeah,
taught.
But
Sorry to
let me
interrupt.
just say one thing. I want you guys to know, right? Like,
Yeah,
even hearing your story, there's a lot to unpack. Know that we all have daughters.
Yeah.
All of us. And just for us, it is the greatest thing that's ever happened to us. And on the opposite spectrum, we will resort to the highest level of violence to protect our daughters.
Right.
It's complete. And I don't even mean like what you're saying. I mean, all you gotta do is look wrong at our daughters, talk crazy, say, hey, wait, it's gonna be a problem. But
It's
just so you,
instinct for us.
I just want you to understand too that the world is growing. There's parts of the world that aren't grown up yet, and it sucks,
yeah.
and they have to be educated.
In the same breath, I want you to know that I have a lot of Latino women reach out to me because of the violence they face, the
They're not
discrimination they face. And also Houston, Texas, is one of the places that got a lot of victims come forward. Thousands, not just one or two,
My
thousands.
mom, I lived in a battered woman shelter. I grew up like that, and I'm gonna go the opposite. And all of us, we respect women to the highest level. We super appreciate that you're here,
Right.
And I feel like, again, your time is limited. You know, you're visiting. There's a lot of podcasts, but your story just needs so much more time too.
Yeah.
Put more light on it.
Yeah, you're strong. We need to just pound. We're gonna help you, like hit the media and just spread your message.
Thank you.
In your culture, did they have like arranged marriages for you as a little girl? Like, did they have it where they already had your husband set up for you?
I think before we get onto that, maybe we should
Yeah.
ask Dr. Celeste how her.
Oh,
Yeah.
So it's a bit of a roller coaster then. It's not
it
so.
is. It is.
Bring it back up a bit lighter.
Yeah, a bit lighter.
A bit lighter. So my childhood, I grew up, I think, in a bubble. I think it's the best way to describe it. I just grew up with lots of love from my mum. have my 2 younger brothers, and I think I thought I grew up and lived a normal life. And then I think I sort of got to a certain age and I thought actually certain things at home aren't quite normal. My dad shouldn't be shouting at my mum and treating her in the way that he does. And, you know, this isn't what should be happening. This isn't have friends over to the house, and I should be allowed to go to friends' houses, should be allowed to paint my nails if I want to. But all of those things were
Wait,
quite...
what age you talking about?
Yeah. I'm kind of weird. What age?
Oh, 16, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, we sure.
We good.
Carry on.
It was just certain things like that were very, very controlled. And I, you know, just going to somebody's house, we had to send a photo to prove where we were. Keeping receipts from the supermarket to show what time we bought the groceries so that, you know, it could be checked that we hadn't stopped off anywhere on the way home.
ATA, right?
And, you know, then a phone call to say that we're home, and okay, phone call, okay, my dad's on the way home, quickly I need to make sure I've swept the floor and his drink's ready and the TV's on what he wants to watch, and that sort of servitude, like you said, that's how part of my childhood was growing up. I'm not going to say it was an unhappy childhood, because as I said, I grew up in a bubble, so I was happy in the love that I had and the things that I had. I think I just realised as I grew up, a lot of the things that I did experience weren't.
I think it was when you went to university.
I think sort of around the age of 18, I moved away to go to college, and I realised that, okay,
When it spreads your wings a little bit.
wild
Yeah.
world, and I can do these things, and I can speak to people, I can go out, and I don't have to be home at a certain time, and I don't have to say where I'm going, and I can actually just live life. Yeah.
Did that, I'm sorry, Tay, real quick. That upbringing, did it have any credence on you deciding where you went to college? Like, I had to go to college away to kind of see life a different type of
I think
situation?
for myself, because of where we lived in a very small town, so wherever I went to, I was going to be going away. So even the nearest place was still going to be far enough away that I wouldn't be living at home. So I always knew that I'd be sort of moving away, so that wasn't really an issue, but I ended up going to London, which was obviously a whole new world. It's the one place you didn't want to go.
I was going to ask, what is the race of your dad? Nigerian? Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't hear. Oh, yeah.
It's basically sat far away from
See, she got you. That's that sarcastic humor.
I like it.
It was the accent that's what it was.
So with mom's upbringing, right? Give me some of the things that kind of came that you kind of seen from mom's upbringing. Like, was she like super duper like overprotective of you? What was the age where you can have a boyfriend?
well, I was controlling my dad.
Never.
I wasn't allowed a boyfriend.
Never.
Yeah, that was just a sort of unspoken thing. No, not allowed a boyfriend. But I think with my mum, I didn't know about her childhood as when I was growing up. I can't remember what age you told me. I think I must have been.
I never told you.
I knew bits. I knew that she didn't speak to her family and she had to run away, but I didn't know the ins and outs of what she went through. But all I knew was that, and she'd always taught me to be very independent, and she always wanted me to be able to, she'd always instilled this thing in me that I have to be able to rely on myself and to never have to rely on anybody else, to always be self-sufficient and have that self-love. And she always gave me lots of love.
So in your culture, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's really no courting when you're young. It's really like it says really like no dating, just pretty much, you know.
I wasn't against Dr. Celeste dating. It was her father. The father prohibited her to have friends, let alone a relationship. He didn't allow her to have external friends. The children had to go to school and come straight home. They weren't really allowed to socialise. It was a real control thing. It was never really to do with culture.
With all due respect, right? With the upbringing you had, what would make you marry a guy that was so controlling?
I didn't. So I'm going to go back to the arranged marriage question.
Right.
Okay. So in my culture, it's still very common to have an arranged marriage. There's a difference between.
No, stop right there,
Okay.
because that's important, right?
Yeah.
So, and from what I know, I'm not the sharpest right now, I'm far from the
If
dullest,
you say
right?
negative things about yourself, then you bring negativity. You're sharp.
I'm sharp.
Own it. Come on.
My wife is
I
a lot
agree with
sharp.
what you said.
My wife is a lot sharp. Yes.
I agree with what you said.
But with the women being arranged, doesn't a dowry come back with that?
So there's a difference between arranged and forced marriages. Arranged is if I have a son, you have a daughter, and I say, hey, you're a good family person, my child's been brought up in a good family, should we have a discussion about our children being collectively getting into a relationship? They don't know each other, but they're introduced. It's an introduction. And with an arranged marriage, you have a choice of saying, I don't want to do this, I want to do this, I'm quite happy to figure it out.
Gotcha.
With a forced marriage, you have no choice. You're sometimes shown a photo, sometimes you're told, this is depending on which religion you are, or culture I should say, you're told this is your cousin, you're going to marry him. Or you're told, right, we've arranged your marriage, again arranged, it's a loose word here, but we've arranged your marriage when you were 6, we promised you to so-and-so's son. And that is bordering arranged and forced because you're not really allowed to make a decision. But yes, it still continues. Forced marriages is one of the things we campaign against. Child marriages, I think we campaign against it in the US. There's so many states that still allow a 12-year-old girl to get married with the parents' consent. A lot of states, I don't know if you know this, but if a child under the age of 16 is raped by a man, they have to marry that person instead of pressing charges against that person. So I talk a lot on stages about forced marriages, especially forced child marriages. And going back to the original question, yes, it's very common in my culture to have a forced marriage at whatever age. I didn't have a forced marriage. My situation was very different. Not uncommon though, I'll be honest. But my childhood was when I lived every day quite innocently. You know, like Celeste, Dr. Celeste said, she was in a bubble, so was I. My day was I would get up happy as a child, run downstairs, prepare breakfast, go to school, come back, looking forward to what I'm going to make to feed my parents. It was an act of love, it was a service to them. I was extending my love through them, that was my role in the family. So I wasn't unhappy, I was happy as I could be with the knowledge that I had of my normality. But when I got to 14, sadly something happened that I would say took away my childhood. Maybe you know my story, maybe you don't, but I was always the servant, feeding my parents, feeding my father's friends when they would come. And one particular night there was a group of them that were exceptionally drunk, and they, when I went in to pick the dishes up, my father was the first person to grab my wrist, throw me onto a table like this and rape me. I was passed from person to person, I was bitten, I was tortured in a way that I can't describe. And that kind of really changed my whole perception of life. I didn't want to live. You know, I'd gone from a happy child to a mere shell of who I was. I didn't understand about these things because a 14-year-old really can't comprehend about these things. My father never spoke to me about it, no one spoke to me about it. I did get pregnant on that night and I did have an abortion, which then led to me being somebody who was not going to get married. So I was a problem. Had that not happened, I would have had a forced marriage in a year or two. But then I was traded at 15. My father traded me to one of the men that attacked me in that gang rape. And the trade was, it was a trade for secrecy. It was a trade for quiet, for people on the outside to think this is a normal marriage. But I had a sham wedding to the man's son, but I was there really for his sexual obligations and to serve my mother-in-law as a servant and to go out and earn money to pay for things. So I became a slave in a different kind of way, and those 4 years, I'll be honest with you, were torture. And that arranged marriage, that forced marriage, however you want to put it. And I ended up not wanting to be there.
What gave you courage, the empowerment, the yourself to remove yourself from the situation?
I hated who I was. You know, I hated everything about me. I hated being pinned down. I hated my father-in-law's breath on my face. I hated being tortured. They would do things in such an inhumane way, where I would be stripped naked, tied up with a metal coat hanger, left naked on the floor for hours. I would soil myself. I had no self-respect for myself. When I would go to work, I was a different person. I would turn up and I'd be like, "Hi, everyone," because I had to be in that environment. You know, I was in a professional environment. I had to earn money, and I thought the only way to earn money is to be liked. If people like me, I earn more money, maybe they'll leave me alone. And I was working 2 jobs, I'll be honest with you, just to stay out of the house. At the second job, I met Dr. Celeste's father, who was just a friend, and his girlfriend at the time was a friend. But the difference being, she gave me a little bit of hope because she was from my culture. So when you recognise somebody from your own kind, I guess, it gives you a bit of faith. If they say, "You know what, you've got this, you can do this, go back home, your parents are going to love you." And I wanted to believe that. It doesn't matter how old we are, who we are, we want that maternal love from our parents. That parents turn around and say, "Do you know what, I'm really proud of what you've done." We don't understand that, it's not always there for us, but we constantly search for this recognition for who we are and what we've become.
And no matter the age,
It doesn't make a
you'll
difference.
learn that love from your parents.
And I really believed, you know, because I was a bit of a dreamer, I still am, you know, I had this fairy tale thing that I'm going to go there, my dad's going to give me a big hug. And people say, "Why would you go to the same place that you were raped? Why would you go to the same place that they traded you, almost sold you?" But then where else was I supposed to go? You know, in my head, you don't go to the police because we're taught in our culture the police are bad. We're taught you don't listen to people from a different culture, white British, because they don't have the same dignity or the same ethics or the same values as we have. It doesn't mean they're bad, but when you're taught that, you constantly believe it. You know, there's a certain grading that you have in our culture, and they teach you this person's okay, that person's not okay. You never speak to somebody from this culture. You never do this with this culture. So I was just going on what was programmed into my DNA, I guess. And I wanted love. You know, I craved that love. I was always good at giving it, but never really had it. So I suppose that inner child, that wounded child, that broken child, just wanted to be held and loved.
So how did you get out, though? I want to know what was the steps you had to take to remove yourself from the situation? I'm sure, like you said, you was captured like a slave. You couldn't move around. You couldn't do anything at your free will.
So I was allowed to go to work, and on the last day I decided I would not return. And I remember never looking up at my father-in-law, but I looked him right in the eye that day. It was almost like a "F you, I'm not coming home. You have hurt me so much, you would never hurt me again." And I walked out to work differently that day. There was a little more of a bounce in my step. I was excited. I hadn't seen my parents for 4 years whilst I was in this marriage. I was excited to see them. My dog, I had a dog from a young age, and I wanted to see her. You know, I was desperate. She was really my only friend. I didn't have friends. So I wanted to go and hold her. I wanted to feel her warmth. And sadly, when I got to the house, I didn't get the reception that I'd hoped for.
I want to go to the doctor, so that's real quick. So when you learned of Mom's struggles and her story, how did it make you feel, and what did you feel you had to do for your mother to kind of ease, even though she probably maybe was over it? You know, you can tell it's still, like, the hurt is still there. Like, how did you feel you had to ease her when she had the strength to tell you about her life story?
Just before she says this, I only admitted to myself about the attack 2 years ago. And I told her face to face because I felt I needed to tell her. It was just after COVID.
Yeah, I think when I first found out, I was in shock because I knew parts of my mum's story, but obviously not all of the story. So then obviously finding that out, I just thought, how can one person have gone through so much and still be the person that she is? That was one of my first thoughts. And then I think anytime somebody tells you something sad and upsetting and you can see that it's hurt them deeply, you hurt for them. And it's obviously hard to hear that, you know, one of the people that you love the most has gone through so much pain. It was obviously hard. I didn't really know what to do. I think, you know, what do you do in that type of situation? All you can try and do is show them that you're there for them, if they want to talk about it, that you're there and you give them love and sort of give them a safe space. I think it's a difficult situation because it's, you know, what can you realistically do? I think you feel, and after when my mum left my father, I felt a lot of guilt, and I think that's one thing that took me a long time to get through was the guilt, and then finding out that she went through all of this as well. It just felt like another sort of thing that I just felt, in a way, I guess, heavy. But at the same time, I've got to this point in my life where, although people go through bad things, I can only help them in the position that they're in now and help them to heal and move forward. And that's what I'm here to always be there for her and help her, she helps me.
How would you feel?
If my mother told me,
If I was your mum, how would you feel?
honestly, I would want to go back there and encourage a lot.
Is that how you feel?
I would want to go back there and put my hands on somebody. If my mom told me, and I love and respect my pops, but if she told me that that would be my grandfather actually, did that to her, as a man, I would have to say it. I would have to see that guy. I would have to have a conversation with that guy.
I totally agree with you. But one thing I can say is that, like, I've seen the interview on YouTube, and I know of plenty of situations, and a couple personally, that, you know, what happened to you, happened to a couple other women, and they didn't want the baby because of the rape or whatever. But your mom going through what she went through and wanting that and desiring that love, and knowing that you're a part of her. You can't, you know, you formed this inside of her. You know, it's that unconditional love.
So I think people listening might get confused.
No,
here.
she aborted the baby.
I didn't have a choice. So when I was 14 years old,
Right.
my father drove me to the clinic, and I had an abortion from that rape.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. I think there's a bit of confusion. I don't want people listening to get confused. So what happened was, that's what happened. And when I went back to home, you know, wanting this love, wanting this family to hold me and give me a huge hug, that's when an honour killing took place, or an attempted honour killing. Now, what an honour killing is, you could, in my culture, it could be called, it's called an honour killing, but in other cultures it's called different things. But it happens all around the world. It happens in the Middle East, it happens in Africa, it happens in South America quite a lot. I've had so many victims come forward, and what happens if you go against what your parents believe or the community thinks is the right thing, they will kill you. So maybe a girl has fallen in love with somebody of a different culture. That's not allowed. You know, interracial relationships are definitely not allowed. And if you've shown your hair, if you're supposed to have it covered in the Middle East, you will be killed. And it's been on the news, there's been those cases. If you are wearing something sleeveless in the Indian community, that could cause a stir to say that you are deliberately seeking attention from men, and that's why you should be killed. My situation was, I had left the forced marriage, I hadn't had a child, and I had brought shame upon my family by doing that, by coming back home and leaving them. The arrangement that they had made was broken. So everything was falling apart. The truth may possibly come out. It was a real panic, it was a real frenzied attack that I walked into. You know, my father's an ex-professional wrestler, my brother's 6 foot tall, and my other brother's just as tall, but he wasn't there. And they started to beat me in a way that, you know, I've been beaten a lot of times. I'm sure you guys, you know, may have been told off by your parents, maybe even had a beating, I don't know. But there's a difference between when you know the beating means something. It was very intentional that they wanted to kill me.
There's a different intention behind that.
Well, I'm gonna tell you, my mother used to beat that. My mother was.
Should have got some more.
My mom, and it wasn't. I don't think it was like to harm me or with that kind of intent. But Mama laid it on me a couple of times for things that I didn't do for it. But okay, I want to go ahead. Sure.
So I don't know you, right? Meeting you for the first time today, and just hearing this much of the story, and I'm enraged. I'm using like every ounce of energy I have to not cry.
And what will that do for you though if you're in rage?
Because
how does that help?
and I'm saying this to you only because you asked a particular question.
No, yeah.
And we all kind of gravitated towards violence.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you why. It's probably not the solution, right? And it's not what you're looking for. But we were raised a certain way in our community. And that violence only comes out of the love for you.
Not only for me, no. You know what else? Know about our result of violence? Because even though he wouldn't be able to feel the pain you felt, I want him to feel some pain. That person to me needs to feel some sort of pain.
Yeah.
And maybe it'll be an example set.
It might be strange to you, right? Because you know, like you talk about honor killing, right? And in our version, it's like in your honor, to honor you, we're gonna go hurt them.
Yeah.
Probably not the right thing, right? I get it, but I'm just telling you that's how we feel off the rip because we respect our moms, our daughters, our grandmas.
Which is how it should be.
Correct, and I don't want you to feel like, oh man, it's just
No.
it's in your honor
I
to
understand.
defend.
It's protecting. You're protecting.
I get two wrongs don't make a right,
Yeah.
but it damn sure make us evil.
I'll tell you why I don't agree with violence. It doesn't resolve anything in the long term. You know, I don't hate my parents. I don't hate anybody because they need more love, in my opinion. Something within them is causing them to react in this way. So I don't have that hatred for anyone. And yeah, programming is a cultural thing. Now, how can I get on the decks and start playing? I won't be able to do it. Celeste might. Dr. Celeste probably could. She's done it before, but I probably couldn't because in the capacity I have, my knowledge is restricted. So I can't technically do that. I could learn. Of course, I could have a go. So how could my parents love me if they didn't know how to love themselves? I come from a place of love. I am full of self-love. I can love all of you. As my brothers, you know, I can love you.
Yeah.
But you can't give that to somebody if you don't have it. Now, my parents didn't have that compassion. The culture makes them so tunnel visioned, they cannot celebrate their child. Dr. Celeste was celebrated. I had a party when she was born because I wanted to celebrate her. What happened with the honour killing was, you know, I'd walked into this attack. My brother had literally grabbed me, my father. They started to beat me in a way that, like I said, I've never been beaten before, and they broke on my jaw. I put my hands up to be protected, and they twisted my arm and broke it. You know, it was that kind of thing. They had no remorse or no compassion. They were doing what they believed had to be done. When I fell down, they were stamping on me, kicking me, and it was when my father put his foot against my throat, I felt myself almost leave my body. You know, I was in and out of consciousness, and I do believe I died. And it was a little voice, which sounds odd, but I've said it 1,000 times, saying, it's not your time. Not your time yet. I wanted to go. I desperately had enough of this existence. I didn't want to be here anymore. But I remember going back into my body and feeling nothing. I was numb. I knew what they were doing. I could feel the insults. I could feel the heaviness of their words. Because you know, in our culture, especially with the Latino culture, the way that words are put upon us, they don't say you're a bad boy. They'll say something totally different.
The connotation.
Yeah.
And the anger they put on that.
You know, I was disgraceful to them, and they were telling me how disgraceful. So I felt terrible that I've let my parents down. I've let the community down. Who am I? I don't deserve to live. You know, I had all these horrible feelings of my own from what they were putting on me, and that heaviness kept me on that floor. They stopped because my other brother came in and said, let's take you to India. Thousands of girls are taken to India, to Pakistan, to Africa every year for FGM, a forced marriage, to be killed, and nobody stops them. You know, I sit on the board at the Home Office. I'm supposed to be in the meeting right now. I am here. But you know, but I'm the one that they don't like to sit on the board because everybody else is going, yes, we agree, and I'm actually no. I'm a lived experience survivor, which is something they're not. A lot of these charities puts them out of a job. I have another job. I want a solution. I want it to stop. So unfortunately, I'm hated by them too, and that's okay because I think the three of us that do this job. There's another one of us called Amanda Rafferty. We'll give her a shout out. She's in Northern Ireland.
Next time.
play that back to her. She, you know, the three of us, we're saving lives. We're rescuing girls, but the most important thing we're doing is we're loving them. We're giving them that support I wish I'd had.
Can I give a little pushback? You said, and I do agree with this. You do the best you can with what you have, right? You if you don't know, it's like you can't be judged for something that you don't know, right? But perfect example, because I can only go from my life experiences, right?
Sure.
When I had my first son, I was blessed to have my father in the hospital room with me, right? After he was born. So I had to go to my job to get some papers for my job to excuse my absence for my son being born, right? So I'm having a conversation with my pops while I'm driving to my job. And I told him, I said, Dad, I really don't know how to feel right now. It's a baby that's been born, and I only knew this guy for 2 hours maybe. But yet I love it so much that I'm willing to lay my life on the line for somebody that I don't even know. It feels fake. He said, well, son, I was 22 at the time. You're 22. Imagine how I feel about you. So I think God put it in us naturally to love our offspring, like big out. So I don't agree with them just having a natural hate for babies. They're so innocent. They're so precious. They're God's gift to everybody, and it's not their choice to be here. So I don't see how a human being. There are some, you do know there are people like that, but I don't see how a human being could not love their own, like such a precious little gift. That's
I think it's when the person is programming can sometimes delete like instinct.
Or overrun.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And their parents was probably programmed that way to feel that way.
And
it was
the
culture.
community, culture, they push that on you.
Yeah, I agree with I agree with y'all somewhat, but you know, just like Nika was saying, as far as, you know, when she was attacked by her dad and her brothers and everything, I'm like, I get it, you know, that might be the way you was raised, the culture of it, but something inside of you, I call it the spirit, you know, whatever because you are in, something inside you has to tell you, hey man, this is not it.
it's not right.
Yeah.
Okay,
You know?
so can I say something?
Yeah,
I
sure.
think, we'll let you.
Okay, let's take it.
No. I think it's one of those things where everyone sitting here can't understand why somebody would do that because we're not that type of person. I think, you know, you watch on the news about serial killers and you think, how can somebody go out and murder so many people, you know, that have done nothing wrong to them? You know, you're saying, okay, if somebody's wronged you, you might think otherwise, but just complete strangers. How can somebody have that in them to go out and murder 17 people just for the sake of doing it? You can't understand that because you're not that type of person.
Yeah, exactly.
So we can never understand those types of people and why they've chosen and made those choices because we never would. You would never harm your children, and so you could never understand the mentality and the mind of somebody that would. And we never will because we're not that type of person and you never will be. And I think that's just one of those things in life that you have to, you know, like you respect everybody has their differences. It's one of those unfortunate things that some people just don't have that within them, they don't have that love.
You know, I have a joke in my head, but it's hard for me to even joke when you talk about harming kids.
This is really not the time or place.
But I had a joke because I whip them kids something, but I don't.
I knew where you're going. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's called
But I
read
think-
the room.
I think the point that Dr. Celeste is saying is very valid. That
It is.
because you don't think that way,
Very valid.
so, you know, what she says is valid, but you also have to understand we don't need to understand them, we just need to understand it's wrong. That's the main message.
Right.
If we can say it's wrong, call them out for it, hold them accountable, that's how change starts.
But how does that become the culture? Like, how many men in this culture is just gonna sit back and just say, that's how it should be?
I was gonna ask, I've read there are times where the father and the brother refuse to commit the honor killing. The community turns on them and they have to flee because they refuse to do that to their daughter, which I find honorable. But even still, like that's a hit, and they gotta flee to the U.S. or somewhere else. Has that happened?
Yeah.
Like in your obviously a small percentage.
But also then you might get an uncle that might get involved. It's also not just the men that do it; also the women are also involved as well.
Which is crazy.
Yeah,
That's
so
great.
sometimes, you know, I mean, we had a case with a young girl, and I think was it the aunt sort of enticed her, and then, you know, the uncle attacked her, and these things happen. It's not necessarily just the dad and the brothers. You know, there's other people that will be
because your respect will movers and shakers.
Yes.
Your respect is also going to be connected to his respect and yours. So if you all do something wrong, it's going to have a reflection on you.
Absolutely.
So what Dr. Celeste is saying is the families get involved. Everyone's involved.
You know,
now's not a time to take it.
That's it. Better get used to it.
You know, their children are my nieces and nephews, and their children.
Think about that.
Nothing will happen to none of their children that won't happen to me first. I'm going to always jump in front of whatever's in the way, whatever harm is coming, and I can actually see it, and I can physically get to it.
Yeah.
It's never going to this day, my wife, I make sure she walks on the inside of me. I never let her walk on the outside of me. I always sit with my back to the wall in the restaurant because I need to see what's going on. It's just certain things that was put in me as a child from my pops. I was raised by my pops, thank God.
That's the difference. Your programming is of good programming.
So
you've had that higher grade of programming in comparison to some people. And they can only give you what they know. So your father knew those things. He knew about etiquette. He knew about being a gentleman. He knew about opening the door for a woman, making that person feel special and needed. He understood that. If you don't know that, you can't pass it on. You can't teach anyone. So going back to my story, what about me?
All about you. Be quiet. Stop butting in. Be quiet.
So the story that there was a bit of confusion about Dr. Celeste and her birth and everything. So I escaped that attempted honour killing. I was left there for days. They hadn't got me to India. They hadn't got me off the floor. No one came to check me. So I'm lying there. And I want you to imagine it, literally lying there looking like something out of a horror film with blood covering my face. The carpet is sodden with my blood and urine and the rest of it because I couldn't move. I had a bone protruding from my leg, just about to cut through the skin. You know, my jaw was broken, my arm was broken, my hip was displaced because they'd stamped on it. So I was really like a little rag doll that couldn't move. And I was told by somebody who put their head through the door, we don't say our names in our culture if somebody's older than you. Like your children would call him uncle, they won't say his name in my culture. And that's how it was. So I had an aunt who wasn't really an aunt warn me that they're going to take you to India to kill you on Sunday. And I panicked. I was like, what day is it? I'm thinking to myself, how long have I been lying here? I don't know, because time, it disappears. The whole concept of day and night goes. But I knew that I couldn't move. My body was stiff. It was aching. I was in pain. You know, I kind of wanted to die because I was sick of trying. And we all get knocked down in life. I say this all the time. We all get knocked down. And it's that mental attitude that you have, what you're telling yourself, the story that you're telling yourself, that resilience that you have to find to get back up. Sometimes it's hard, but the longer you stay down, this is what I tell my fighters, the harder it is to get up.
Yeah.
If you get up within a certain amount of time, you're going to win. If you stay down, you've already told yourself you're not going to make it. So I got myself out of that situation, however I did it, and I ended up in a hospital for a long time. Then I went to a women's refuge, which I couldn't have. I didn't know about drugs or alcohol because I wasn't allowed to have it. So to me, everything was like, oh, what are they doing? Why are they behaving this way? They were dancing with their own demons, but I didn't understand. So I wanted to get out. I wanted to go to my friend, the one that had told me everything would be okay. She was that one person with this message. But when I turned up there, She had left to have an arranged marriage. Her parents were okay with her dating their father, who was Nigerian. Indian people do not allow multicultural relation or partner is of African descent, Jamaican, black. Not allowed, right? Not allowed at all. They will turn their backs on you. You are the black sheep of the family.
What about brown?
There's no such thing. You're either black or white.
What about beige? Yeah.
You're in the black category.
Yeah, you slide me over to yeah.
And what happened was he was single and he's got his flat and he said to me, "Oh, do you know what happened to you? Come in the house. Oh, you can rent a room from me." And I thought, this is my saviour. Someone is trying to help me. I didn't know him very well. I knew I didn't like him very much, but still somebody was actually offering to help. Who else was going to help me? Why would they help me? I didn't matter. I didn't matter to myself, so why would I matter to anyone else? So I took the opportunity to have somewhere to live. He said, "You have to get a job." I would go and get a job and I would give him the whole money. Because we used to get our money in little brown packets back in the 80s, 90s. So I would give him that money, and he would take that, and that was what he had. I didn't take it.
Yeah, don't look at that like in the 90s. Okay.
I don't mind.
Yeah.
And then what happened was, he said to me, "This is a good work. If you do my cooking and do my cleaning," and I thought, this is what I used to do at home. It's like, yeah, I can do that. Because I didn't know any different. I thought that was the norm, which is what I did.
Right.
So I looked after him like I did my parents, like I did the others, and that to me was my new life. We weren't in a relationship, we didn't go on dates, we weren't interested in each other that way. I would go to work, go straight to my room, and I would stay there. Until one day he said, "Do you want to go to a party? There's a party." And I was like, "I've never been to a party," and I thought it was going to be like the blowing thing, like a kids' party with a hat. Because I was now 21, 22, still very immature in my own mind, very naive, very innocent. And I went there, and he was ploughing me with alcohol, telling me it was just Coke. And I really don't have fizzy drinks, so I think it's Coke tastes odd. And he's like, "No, it's good, have it."
He had the setup there.
So when I got back, he raped me.
Wow.
And I didn't really understand that's how it should be between a couple. I regarded sexual experiences with violence. So to me it was like, well, obviously I deserved it. I must have done something. It must be my fault. It's not his fault. Whose fault is it? But I got pregnant. And I said to him, "I'm going to have this baby because I was desperate for love." And I wanted to give something my love. I didn't know how I was going to do it. I just knew I would do it. He wanted me to get an abortion and I refused. And when I had Celeste, I didn't let them put her in a little crib as they do. Sometimes they take them off to a little nursery within the hospital. I held her all night. I was scared someone would take her from me, and it's the first time I felt that I wasn't alone. I had her.
Wait, so I really did know stuff.
You did. But you did. You got to switch.
You did, but you
Switch
didn't.
this. But she never told that story. So
Yeah, okay.
she never told that story.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now,
So you were wrong.
All right.
well,
But
because I
I just
looked
wanted
at
to tell him he's wrong.
I looked at the interview 2 days ago. That's really where I got it from. Yeah, that's really.
You know what's amazing to me?
Yeah.
That you are a beautiful young lady. I'm talking about inner and outer. Your appearance. You are a beautiful
54. I
lady.
never said 54.
I'm 30 plus.
I am. I'm 54 and I'm happy with that.
But never being called beautiful or never feeling beautiful. You didn't even know your worth. You didn't even realize how beautiful you are. So it's like that's amazing to me. Somebody that looks like you, but not realizing that. Man, all these dudes.
But if you're constantly told you're fat and ugly,
Right.
that's what you are.
Right.
And I was constantly told by my parents I was a good for nothing. I was ugly. I wasn't tall enough because they were all really tall. I was short. They had something negative to say. So you hold on to what your perception is of yourself from what the mirrors are telling you. You're all each other's mirrors. It's like you come in here and you say, "I don't feel too good today," and he goes, "Bro, you're good. What's wrong with you?" So you think, "Well, actually, I'm good." You kind of take that energy on from people that you trust, and like, who do you trust more than your parents, than your brothers? Who else is there?
Yeah, I make them feel better all the time.
Their only job is to uplift you all day, every day.
And I ended up staying in this relationship for 23 years because in my culture, we are told if you, and probably yours, if you have a baby with somebody, you stay there. It doesn't make a difference if you're not happy. It doesn't make a difference what happens. That's just how it is in a relationship. So I stayed, and I went through 23 years of hell, but I didn't know it because that's what I was used to. So how do you differentiate? I didn't know about these things. If someone tries to hold my hand now, I'm actually quite funny with them. You know, I'm like, what are you doing?
I can imagine.
Don't be doing that. And that's just anybody that's trying to be friendly. But I ended up staying there, and he was never really interested. But I didn't understand. You know, he would go out all the time. But again, learned behaviour from my dad not being there a lot. I had a little boy. When Dr. Celeste was born, I was determined to give her everything I didn't have. Private education, a beautiful house with a huge garden, her own bedroom, you know, all of these beautiful things I never had. And how was I going to do that? I had to create some sort of business, you know? And I was very entrepreneurial. I started a business in my one of my rooms, my bedrooms, turned it into an office, started selling mobile phones because back in the 90s, mobile phones are a huge thing.
Right.
And I was selling them so easily because I like people. And I wasn't selling people what they didn't need, I was selling them what they needed. So with that, if you find a way to talk to people and meet their needs, you'll never be out of work because they trust you. They'll come back to you for what else can you get me on?
Okay.
You know, so you're constantly
Right.
building that relationship. It's so important. I was so good at that.
Business line.
I was so good at that I ended up moving from this flat, an apartment as you would call it, into a beautiful, you know, one of those houses that your kids have probably drawn with the little windows and the gardens. I had exactly that. There's a little lake at the back, cows and sheep in the garden, at the back of the garden, surrounded by farmland, beautiful house, on the corner, you know, cul-de-sac. It's a beautiful place for the children to grow up. I had a little boy. My ex-partner was happier because I had a boy. He seemed to celebrate my son. And then I got pregnant again, and by this time he was saying to me, I don't like you, you need to pay me money to stay with you. And I was like, how much do you need? Not why am I paying you? How much do you need? I'll find it. So I was paying him between £5,000 and £8,000 a month to stay with me.
Wow. Okay, wait, give us that.
Yeah,
US dollar term.
5,000 to 8,000, Dr. Celeste? XE.com.
That money is more. Pounds is more than the dollar, right?
Yeah,
It's not like $9,000 a month. It's something like on the high
Close
to
school,
it.
like $9,000 a month.
But I was making it because by this time I had several businesses.
You know what I mean?
And I, you know,
What you mean? Get out my face.
I literally was that. It literally was. Do you know what? If you need it, here it is. But his control over me became unhealthy in a totally different way. My car was tracked, as Dr. Celeste said. We had to show receipts when we went into a shop. And this is when she was 5 or 6 years old. It had started. I then got pregnant again, and by this time he had a relationship with somebody else. He said to me that he really didn't like me. I was too fat, too ugly. He didn't like that kind of shape of person. And I said, that's okay, but I want 3 babies. I don't know what it is with me. But I want, number 3 is my number. I wanted 3 kids, so I was from one of 3, and it's just a mental thing. And I got pregnant for the 3rd time, and he stopped sleeping in my room, which is fine. The children find him sleeping all over the house and didn't ask questions. We just kind of took it as a normality. You know, that it's just the way he is. He drank a lot, admittedly. He went out a lot, admittedly, and that was okay because that was his life. It wasn't an integrated life. He didn't pay attention to the children or want to be part of them. But from the outside, it looked like we were a great family, as always. You know, there's a way of showing this to the world. But the violence was so much so he would push my head into the door as I was walking through it. If I was in the passenger seat of the car, he would push my head against the window. And his pushing habits were really dangerous. And I was, I was 8 months pregnant and coming down the stairs, and he asked for money. I didn't have it. I don't know what it was, maybe being pregnant. I just remember I didn't have it. He wanted to go to Italy with his friends to clubbing, and you know, he wanted the booths and everything there. And I couldn't give him the money. So I just remember saying, I haven't got it. And next thing I knew, I'd been pushed down the stairs. I'm lying face front on the carpet. I'm in pain, and I end up at the hospital, and I give birth to my 3rd child. Sorry.
It's okay.
Which is my baby boy. I
Open.
I don't like holding hands. And I end up giving birth to my baby boy, I'm holding him and he stops breathing. And I'm listening to every other baby crying in the ward, because you're in a maternity ward. I'm sure it's the same in he's not moving. And I don't want to let go of him, and they're saying, you have to let go, you have to let us take him from you. And I don't want to let go, I'm on my own. And I just remember feeling it should be me, not him. I ended up staying in the hospital for a while because there were some complications and I nearly died. But every time I would turn, I would hear a baby cry. And my baby's lying in a crib, too far for me to get up and reach him because I can't walk or do anything. But all these babies are crying, and I'm asking God, because I believed in him at that time, why would you do this to someone who doesn't have any badness in her? Why would you do this? Why have you taken him from me? I don't deserve it. And that's the first time I felt really depressed, I'll be honest with you. I felt like giving up. I felt like, what's the point? I didn't even care about the other two children, which is really hard to hear, I know. But I'd lost myself. I'd lost myself in such grief, and grief's a terrible thing that just takes over. You can't get yourself out of this hole that you've almost fell into to save yourself, and there's no one else that's coming to save you. So where do you go? It took me a long time to overcome this. I ended up getting pregnant again because I begged their father, and during this time my pillow was set alight as I'm sleeping. The smell of hair burning is a very distinctive smell, I cannot forget that. I was paranoid of fire, and time went on. As Dr. Celeste said, she went to university and she really realised, didn't you, at that point, things were wrong. But when she started to ask questions, he forbid us to speak to one another. And maybe you want to talk about that.
Wait, how old is she at this time?
She's gone to university, so she's 18.
Oh, wow, so you understand. Okay.
Yeah, so obviously at that point I was fully aware that things were definitely very wrong, and I'd gone back home a couple of sort of weekends, as you do, see the family and, go tell them about how everything's been, super excited, and I'd get back and I think because when you're away from the situations as well, you sort of forget in a sense, because you're just living your life, you're free and everything's great and new, and you're in your new bubble and everything's great. You come back and you're just like, this is very wrong, and this isn't how things should be. Why am I putting myself in the situation? Why is she living in the situation? Why is this still going on? Then obviously I started, and all the whys, why this, why that, and I started saying to my dad, well, why did you do this? And why does she have to tell you when she's going to the shop to get milk? Why does she have to call you before? Why do we have to keep the receipt? And why do you get angry if this is not done in X, Y, Z way? And why? And obviously when somebody's that controlling, they don't like to be questioned. Right. They just want people to do. They tell you to do something, you have to do it, you don't ask questions. And I also knew that by asking so many questions, it could obviously reflect badly on my mum, because I would leave, and who's going to get the brunt of all of it? She would. So I would question things to a point, and I knew the point that I could sort of push to, and it just got to the point where, and I remember getting the train back to London, because we get trains, we don't drive everywhere in England. We do drive, but not as much as you guys out here. And we're at the train station waiting for the train, and I remember turning to my mum and I said, if you don't leave, I fear this may be the last time that I ever see you again. And I think it had gotten to a point where I just felt that things are just, because they weren't progressively getting worse, he had locks on the bedroom doors, so he would lock everybody in the bedroom doors at night, including my youngest brother was locked in his bedroom door. And I just thought, this is crazy, how can we live in this situation? You can't. And so I said, things need to change, you need to move, something needs to happen. And that's sort of where things were, and he then stopped us communicating. He would keep her phone, I was living on edge. I lived in a constant state of anxiety, and I was studying at the time, and I'm trying to get on with my studies and concentrate on that, but I had this
External stress.
fear, yeah, in the sort of pit of my stomach, and I just had this fear that I was going to get a knock on the door from the police, from the cops, to say, don't say cops, the cops. You don't say cops. I was waiting for the cops to knock on the door. But I was expecting a knock on the door to say, you know, that he'd killed my mum, and if not just my mum and my youngest brother, because my middle brother was off at boarding school because my dad had hit him. So my mum sent him to boarding school, to, you know, for his safety.
Save his life,
Had a very distorted reality. You know, my solution should have been leave, but instead it was like, I'll send him to boarding school and then have to work another job so that I can afford the boarding school. I didn't really, and this is the problem now. I talk to the police and I explain things, because when you're a victim of abuse from a young age, you don't think straight. It's not because, oh, she's so stupid. And people have said, oh, she's so stupid. Maybe the video you've watched, there would be comments like, why don't you just go? She's in England. Why should you just ask for help? You don't ask for anything because your self-worth doesn't exist.
Right.
And also, Dr. Celeste, you talk about domestic violence from a child's perspective. So
like I said, you're living in a bubble, and you also taught, you know, it's learnt behaviour. You know what to say, you know what not to say. You know, like I said, if I say a certain thing, it's going to come back onto my mum.
Right.
So I have to be careful with what I do and also with what I say. And so you know when you can say things, you know when you can't say things. I know, okay, my dad's going to be home in half an hour, so I've snuck out the house, I need to quickly run back to make sure, you know, by sneaking out the house, I've just gone into the centre of the town to meet my friend for lunch.
And there was a really small, sleepy town, nothing ever happened there.
And it's, you know, it's, okay, he's going to be back in half an hour, I need to leave, I'm really sorry, and I'm going to rush back. And,
But what I meant was, you now talk on stages about how domestic violence doesn't just affect the woman or man involved, it affects the children, and it causes a lot of mental health issues.
Because I think a lot of people don't think about the children when it happens. It's domestic violence is between the two people that it happens, but it affects everyone else because, yes, we grew up in a bubble, but we were also, you know, I didn't have any close family growing up. We had certain people that we were around, and over time, the communication with them was stopped because, you know, you're kept so close and controlled. You can't speak to these people. Yeah, you get
So
isolated.
you don't know your father's side of the family at all?
Not really. I mean, most of them are back in Nigeria anyway, and some of them didn't speak to her family, but we did have people that were sort of like close family friends, close enough that they were family at the time. When I was younger and they were around, but as I got older, we saw less and less people because it became more and more isolated.
See, and that's where people have to speak out. If you care about each other, and suddenly you stop speaking to say yourself, you need to go find out why he's not speaking to you guys. But nobody does. They don't want to get involved. They don't want to put themselves, you know, oh, it's their business. But it's also could save somebody's life. You know, there's a duty of care that we have to each other, to children, to women, to victims all around the world. And I say things like, if you're on a train, if you're on a bus, or if you're in a public place, you can just distract that situation of abuse, if it's domestic violence or whatever it is, by saying, have you got the time? Or do you know what the next stop is on the tube? Or do you know, where I can find X, Y, Z? You can distract that and kind of calm that situation down to give that woman or that man a breather at least for a short period and report it. You can make an anonymous call. I mean, an example is my son, Dr. Celeste's brother, was walking past, he's a doctor too, Dr. Arjun was walking past a car the other day with his girlfriend, and they noticed that the man was behaving very much in a violent way towards the woman on the passenger side. He was knocking her bottle of water from her mouth as she was trying to drink it, which is something that his father would have done. So he recognised that. He could have walked past it and gone, poor woman, like a lot of us have, admittedly. But he rang me and told me that he needed it reporting. He took a picture of the car, and he actually knocked on the door and told the guy, what are you doing, sort of thing. And I don't swear, it's part of me. But
Nah, these moving shakers only
no.
moving shakers.
No, I gotta do
beep it
No,
out.
we not. No. Yeah.
But the point is, he did something. Maybe because I'm now an activist and we have a non-profit, but the fact is he did something. Now, the police then, I have access because I sit on several boards at Scotland Yard. I'm very privileged to be able to have a voice for our community, our cultural community, and also victims of any abuse. And I'm very much not don't tick the boxes. If I've got something to say, I will say it. Everyone's shoulders always go, oh, she's here, you know, she's going to say something. But we need more people like myself to say the truth and not be scared about it. And that's why you can either be part of the problem or the solution.
So speaking of your activism, I'm sorry.
You're not really.
No, we are. No, I'll tell you, no, we know each other. But they're just like a time constraint, so we're like,
yeah,
and then we'll get all, we've done this for a while. But speaking of your activism, how, we need to know what the organization is, how to get a hold of you, how can the Movers and Shakers be a part of that and help you get your message out? Because we've talked a lot, and now we need to know, like.
Sure.
Before we get to that.
Okay.
See, that's all right, that's how.
Yeah, because we're going to get to that. I need to know, work aside, children aside, different organizations that you run. Where is your happy place? What do you do for fun? What do you do what gives you a good laugh?
It's something because she said, "Woo!"
Like this show's been really deep, right?
It gives you the woos.
When I got to 50, I found me. Because we know who we are as, you know who you are as a father, as a son, as a brother, as a friend, but do you really know who you are internally? Do you really know who you are, what you like, what you don't like? Do you have a lot of influences by people around you? No, I didn't know me. A lot of people will go through life not knowing.
Yeah, I know me. That sounds creepy.
You don't want to know.
Well, I'm not creep type, okay? But a lot of people will go through life not knowing, and I discovered who I was because I let go of everyone else's voices, and I decided I wasn't fat or ugly. I was who I wanted to be. So I rewrote everything.
So you know you don't you know now? You know, so you got
even flip the wrist change
But I became a mindset coach before I became an activist. Before I even discovered who I was, people will give us messages of who we are, good messages, but we ignore them because the negative voices take over. Well, that can't be true because I'm not really a business person. And I started listening. I started listening to the people that were giving me positive feedback. I became a mindset coach for UFC fighters and MMA fighters about 5-6 years ago by chance. I was in the right place, right time, no qualifications, nothing. But I came across a group of UFC fighters that were in London. I was in London too. Funny story, I was pulled out of a fire engine because I didn't want to get out by one of the heavyweight champions of the world. Didn't know who he was at the time. And I go, puts me down, and he's like, this girl has fire, you know. And I was just, but I sat with them from 7 o'clock at night to 11 o'clock the next morning, whilst Dr. Celeste is wondering, where has my mother gone? She's not back. This is, you know, my curfew. No. So we sat there, men and women, and I made sense to them. You know, whatever they were asking me. The thing about therapists and coaches is that they will go all around the houses before they try and help you, you know, figure it out. I don't do that. I just tell you straight. This is your option. This is your option. This is what you want to do. I'm in a lot of anguish mentally. But I became this mindset coach in a very small niche because I know how to get off the floor when you're knocked down. I know what it takes to have that mental resilience. I was paid a lot of money and I thought this is a good job. And I kind of fell into it that way. And now I'm very proud. I work with certain people that I can't necessarily say, but they're all over my social media anyway.
Yeah, but you didn't answer my question. I said
I'm getting
organizations
there. I'm getting there.
Okay, come on.
When I got to 50 and I found me,
here we go.
The amount of love that I felt, it seemed unfair to keep it for me. Because I suddenly had freedom of a different kind that you don't necessarily get. That fear had disappeared, it was replaced with love, and I felt top to the brim, and I wanted to literally hand it out to everyone, and it's like a big secret, and I'm like, oh my God, it's a hack, you know, you need to come in, let me help you. You don't need to live in this situation, you don't have to be unhappy in a relationship, you don't have to argue with your parents, there's a way out, and I can help you get there. I didn't know what I was doing, but I haven't said something that's really important, and that was 2015. I was homeless. I had nowhere to go. We'd left a domestic violence situation, which was really important because this kid here that I gave life to, I'll let her tell you, but she got a text message from her father, a picture message of me asleep. I don't sleep. I've got insomnia. I don't sleep because I got locked in. I don't sleep because my hair was set on fire on my pillow. And her father had tried to kill us.
Yeah, and I received the call. Picture message, and again, going back to the police, it was brainwashed into me that you don't call the police, you don't go to them. And I don't know what it is, you know, sometimes when you're in situations you don't know what to do, something just overrides you. And we were having this conversation the other day. She said, "Why did you call the house?" I just kept calling. We had two landline numbers, 2 home phone numbers. I kept calling. I called all the mobile numbers in the house, and I just called and called and called until she finally answered. And something inside of me was saying, "Just call, and she'll wake up." I had no idea what he'd done or what he was trying to do. I just knew that if I don't do something, she might not be here. And I kept calling all the numbers. Eventually, she picked up and found out that he'd left all the gas on the gas hobs and was trying to essentially gas the house.
So I'm happy.
Answers your question.
You might not
You
get
know what?
Say it again.
Messages she happy.
No.
There's a big social media trend going on where the woman picking the bear over men. Have you heard about it? Where
No.
okay, it's huge here. Where they go, women are feeling more comfortable with a wild bear.
She's behind the camera, reaches away.
Okay, wait, hold on. Watch this. Look it up and you'll see it's super trending.
You know what he's talking about.
So women are picking the bear, but to guys like us, it's offensive. We're like, we're not like that. But I'm understanding more every day why. Because a wild bear is least
I
likely,
mean, you give me hope.
unless it's hungry. And you know what? I feel horrible that your interaction with men has been like this every time.
No, you give me hope. The 4 of you give me hope because I know.
The 5 of us do.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, he's so
Sorry, I forgot.
Yeah, you went ahead.
I met him first before any of you, so
Right.
can't forget him.
Like, we're going to war for our women.
No, but you give me hope that there is compassion and that it's
A
okay to get upset. It's okay to have this humanity within you to give that, extend that love, because you will teach your sons, you will teach your daughters a totally different programming to what I had, and that's encouraging, and that's where my message is most important. I want to change the mindsets of young men, and by coaching UFC fighters, luckily I get the respect from them.
But those are the alpha males. Those are the stronger.
Yeah.
Because of violence.
Yeah.
In our groups.
But I started speaking out.
But they will be perceived as an alpha male.
Correct.
That they're respected, to most people, a fighter is respected. So it's easier to. I'm almost ticking a box to be heard by a certain group of people that maybe wouldn't listen to me otherwise. They think, "Oh, she's cool, she'll listen. We should listen." And especially the people I'm connected with, they do listen. I'm blessed, which I know, and I'm grateful. But I started speaking out 3 years ago because when I was homeless, as I was saying, in 2015, the police found me and said, "We need to speak to you." And I said, "What is it about?" Her father, so he reported, "I've taken my son," because he was young then. They said, "No, it's your father." I said, "Oh, maybe they're going to help me press charges now." And I felt a little bit of hope that maybe it's my turn to get justice, and I want justice. But it was the fact that he had a daughter out of wedlock, a 6-year-old, and he'd abducted her without the mother's knowledge and sold her to human traffickers in India. Now this is my sister, right? It doesn't matter whether she's my half sister, she's my sister, but what's more important, she's a 6-year-old child.
Right.
And I felt a huge amount of guilt, like you were feeling, that I didn't do anything. I didn't press charges because what I'm not told in the story, and if anybody's listening, go find there's 150 podcasts out there.
Yeah, well,
I went to the police after I was covered in blood and everything, and they did nothing. They didn't know how to deal with what's called an honour killing. I'm working in the UK, and I'm hoping to extend this around the world, where this word doesn't exist. All that exists is murder, attempted murder. Because had I walked in that day and said to the police, "I've had an attempted murder," they know what to do.
Exactly.
Right. It's not a distinction.
But because of her being missing, I lost that safe place that I just found at 50. I just found my freedom, and I risk it every day by speaking out. I have normally security. I mean, Celeste does Muay Thai. She's not as feeble as she looks. But I have security in the UK. I don't go anywhere alone. I have too close protection. We're serious right now.
You forgot what show you on?
So I have too close protection to go with me because I am at risk. Okay.
it's kind of hard.
I know. You should be used to it from your mum. Come on, mother figure. But I tell you, I have asked for you all because if this message can get to as many people as it can, and I know my whole intention when I speak is that is another audience, and that person shares it to another audience. Because my videos do go viral. I'm not saying that out of ego, because I'm not egotistical. I'm saying that out of because it matters, you know. And we want to move and shake this word.
She rap too. Got bar segment after this.
I want to move and shake this word honour out of our culture and other cultures. I want this abuse to come to an end. I don't want it to continue, and the only way to do it is by speaking out about it.
Question.
Another one.
Yeah.
Another one.
If you had, this is a more trendy, because this guy went back to 20
weeks ago.
If you had the opportunity to be one-on-one in a room with Puff Daddy Combs, because you're a life coach, what would you tell him? What conversation would you
I say
have?
not today, Satan, is what I would say to him.
Not to date Satan.
Not today, Satan.
Not today, Satan.
I don't have time to be in a situation or a room with anybody with such low vibrational energy.
Yeah.
I don't have time. I could give that time to a victim. I could give that time to somebody. You know, people say, who are your heroes? These are questions I get asked. Who are your heroes? Who most inspired you? And I say the people in the supermarket that have got a whole load of shopping, but they let me go in front because I've got 2 items. They are the people that make a difference in this world. Not the people that get paid and belong to some sort of cult that's looking like they're successful. I don't do that. I don't roll with those people. You know, I'm a real person living in a can't even get my words out now, in an authentic way. As you're rubbing off on me. In an authentic way, and I want real change. I don't want.
So you wouldn't try to help him? You wouldn't try to give him some kind of drink to make him see life in a different manner, or try to help him out because you're a life coach. So
I'm a mindset coach, but if someone's mind is
she's not trying to dance with
I don't want to dance with the
Is that a
devil.
difference?
Yeah. He's been dancing with the devil for 20 plus years.
I'm not dancing with the devil.
Listen, his
One
mindset,
conversation.
the people said it was because of money.
Get it done, though.
He was like that, broke, poor, rich. He's just an asshole. Like, he's just a bad person, regardless.
Most people look up to people like him, not understanding that we're taught. My voice is going.
Okay.
What's that?
I'm leaving Diddy alone. I tried, bro. I tried.
Yeah.
Now we gotta get to
We'll have in about 5 minutes.
quick questions.
That's depressing. Good question, good.
What made you get into
Into dentistry. Well, if you watch my TED talk, you'll see all about my journey into dentistry. It was not an easy, straightforward one. I didn't just go to school, straight into college, become a dentist. It's okay, I don't need you to do that, it's fine. Thank you. Long story short, I was that weird child that used to like going to the dentist.
You like going to
I used to like going to the dentist, yeah. I know most people come in and they absolutely hate it. Loads of people are very anxious. They don't like to see the dentist, but I always love going to the dentist. I think I always had very good positive experiences, so for me, I enjoyed it. Whereas going to the doctors, I absolutely hated it. Coming from a very, my dad being Nigerian, very typical African father, you have to become a doctor or a lawyer, maybe an engineer.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, lawyer, I could probably argue my case, I could do that. That's something I could do. And I thought, doctor, absolutely not, because
You hate him.
I don't like going to the doctors myself, so I don't want to be a doctor. And then I think it was at school somebody suggested dentistry, and I thought, okay, this seems interesting. Did some work experience, everybody said don't do it, so I said, well, I'm going to do exactly that then, and became a dentist. And I think for me, it was that thing, like I said, I always enjoyed going to the dentist. I always had good experiences. And so now, getting there.
That's the target push right there. Yeah.
Clock's on. No, but for me, I now enjoy being able to have patients that come in that are anxious, and particularly I get a lot of anxious patients coming in to see me, and giving them that good experience and making them comfortable. So, the first day they might come in, they're almost crying coming through the door, they're sat in the dental chair crying because they're so anxious to be there. And fast forward 6 months down the line, they can't wait, they come running in, and I'm like, oh, hello. You're not even ready, but here you are. And you get to see that transition in people. That's why I do dentistry, that's why I'm a dentist.
Can I give you some pushback? I don't think that's why they became a dentist. You know what I mean? Give you my reason and my head, my story. Let me give you my story.
Quick fire.
I'll tell you your story.
Yeah.
I think you became a dentist for the free nitrous oxide.
Oh my God.
Give me a shot of that right now, Doc. I need it.
She said actually.
That's definitely wrong because I'm a dentist in the UK and we don't use it as much as you guys do over
I will
here.
not be going to the dentist. I need it.
Like, dang.
It's a huge thing, you know, going to dentists can cause trauma to some people. So Dr. CELESTE, proud mum, I'm going to say for her, she teaches other dentists how to cope with nervous patients. And you always say that you want to give them a smile, don't you? Which is nice. We're not talking about your whatever.
You don't need the nitrous oxide.
Your whatever.
To come in and have
You-
a good experience.
We'll interview you next week.
So
Just not support-
let's Vlad, the question you asked about everything
Yeah.
you got going on because
Yes.
we're on time constraints.
Yeah, so we get back, okay, we go back there. How do, okay, need to know the name of the organization, how we can help, how the audience can help. We want to join and be a part of this. Like, I'm engaged now, I'm energized, like, we want to help you with this.
And that's coming from the heathen that gave you a paper towel to wipe down that seat. You said, oh,
I'm
you
trying
used your hand and tried it with that paper
I'm
towel.
trying to get
It's like
straight
heathen.
roll of
They got a hard paper towel to wipe her
I
tears.
got up in the middle of
I'd
so
rather
many
have
guys.
a roll, you know.
You didn't even
It's
try.
He said, I looked
You didn't
around.
even try.
Well, as
Thank you.
we're on a time constraint,
This is a show.
Usually we can go.
It's Dr. CELESTE. Dr. CELESTE.
I would say one of the big things that we ask people that are listening, and you guys as well, is spreading the word. The reason that we started the organisation was because my mum was doing all of these podcasts, and one in particular went viral, and she was inundated with messages.
Oh,
She was inundated with messages, people just saying, I went through something similar, or I'm going through this and I didn't realise and I need the help, or, you know, I know somebody that's gone through something like this, or, you know, some people were, you know, reacting and engaging in some kind of way, and we realised that we were getting a lot of victims that were reaching out and asking for help. And you need to be in a position to be able to help people to do that. But we also wanted to start it. The reason my mum started speaking out was to raise that awareness and people know what an honour killing is, because if you ask most people, they'd say, what's that? I don't know what that is.
So the organisation helps anybody from anywhere. We have no, you know, you have to fit a certain criteria. My arms are open wide, as I call it, and Dr. CELESTE is there as well. So we train the police between us. We train all sorts of large corporations on cultural intelligence, so they can safeguard their staff. Because if you know what the problem is, you can look after your staff. You have a happier, you know, happier work space as well. But End Honour Killings is the organisation. End Honour Killings.
And honor.
It's spelled in the British way though, honour.
With a U, honour.
Yeah.
End Honour Killings. The easiest way to find it is to look for me on anywhere by Linda's life coach. Told the wrong person that when I arrived in America, and I've had a marriage proposal so far, and that's from somebody in immigration, which is really inappropriate. But
10 minutes into arriving in
This is
Houston.
America.
he didn't waste his time.
America's very.
No, very flattering.
Well, back to Houston.
I'm Linda's life coach. You can follow me on Instagram. On Instagram,
I'm Celestial London on Instagram.
but you find her through me as well. And also, End Honour Killings is connected as well. So spreading the word is the most important thing, but looking out for each other. I would say the way you have this brotherhood, if we can have more people looking out for each other, maybe somebody listening knows their neighbour isn't okay, just not to worry and
Safe.
check in with them. It really can be the difference between living a whole life of trauma as I've done to, you know, finding that freedom a lot earlier.
Some people need help getting out.
Yeah.
We're here to help them get out.
Do you guys do sessions online, like online sessions with the mind?
So we do online coaching calls, mainly for people that have left those situations, just to help them with mindset, moving forward and reintegrating back into life.
Because leaving is just a start. But it's the start of a new beautiful life if someone can help you get there. And I know I can help anybody see things in a totally different light. So we have a monthly or 2 months every time, once a month or twice a month. I can't say it right.
Monthly or bi-monthly.
We'll have a free coaching call. My non-profit is funded by me because of my coaching that I do with fighters, but we're always welcoming people not to have a cup of coffee or not to go to the pub or the bar as you call it and give us that money. You know, £2 or £3, $2 or $3 doesn't take a lot off from you, but collectively it costs us £300 each time to save a victim. And some of these girls are as young as 15, 12, they're very young. But to take them away and let them have the life they deserve and not the life I've had, then, there's no, my credit card, I don't mind. I'm going to use it. I can't put a price on someone's life. I don't want anyone, when you've lived through something, you don't want it for somebody else. You don't want that pain. So we do say to people, if you want to donate, it's all on the website, it's legitimate, you can see we're registered. I'm not that kind of person that's doing the wrong thing. I have a heart, I have a conscience, I'm not going to do it. And if you are part of that, you're part of giving somebody that chance, which everybody deserves.
Absolutely. Can you tell them what the website is so they can?
If you Google Endonicums, our
It's
website.
.org.
So
Yeah.
we're gonna
That's
find it, we're
honor
gonna
with
connect
a
it.
U.
Yeah, honorwithyou.org.
We're gonna connect it to the video. I suggest our fans donate what you can. I'm committing right now. We're gonna donate. Speak for everybody here.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
And you don't practice in the States, right?
Sadly not, unless you can find me a way to get
No, I mean, you can practice in the States, so you can give me some nitrous oxide. I need some nitrous
Find me the way and I'll
oxide.
move.
I think you need coaching.
You sound-
You have an obsession
I
with
think you need that too. I need to get the other service. Change your mindset.
Yeah.
Woo!
You sound like an addict right now.
You must not have had nitrous oxide before.
He doesn't drink. He doesn't smoke. That's all he got.
That's what
Yeah, I've
you
never
because
drank a
it's
smoke
nice.
in my life, so nitrous oxide is my vice.
Oh,
Yeah.
you're coaching
That's the only thing he said the whole show.
Sure.
Texas 101 Jams, Movers and Shakers.
DJ Waynehead.
ASAP.
D-Tay.
Man, boy.
Well, now G money.
And our very, 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 very special
Yes.
guest.
London's life coach.
And Dr. Celeste.
There you go.
With nitrous oxide.
Yeah.